Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris has agreed to be interviewed by CNN this week. She has faced criticism from Republicans and within her own party for a lack of interviews or formal news conferences since her ascent to the top of the Democratic ticket. Ms Harris will be joined by her running mate Tim Walz as the pair try to broaden their supporter base after last week's Democratic National Convention. The interview will air on Friday morning, Australian Eastern Time. Tara Setmayer is the founder of the Seneca Project, which is a political action committee dedicated to mobilising women to support Kamala Harris. And she joins us now from Washington, D.C. Tara, thank you for your time. Now, what can we expect from this interview? What are you looking for from Kamala Harris and Tim Walz?
Well, it's actually pretty standard operating procedure for a presidential candidate and their vice presidential candidate to join together and do an interview like this. She did the same thing when Joe Biden picked her as VP. So this is something that is to be expected. And I think what's going to happen is she's going to answer more specific questions, ask of her about policy, and get some challenges from the interviewer that she has yet to answer for because she hasn't done any major interviews. And how she performs will be important moving forward. But she needed to do this because the criticism of her waiting so long to do it was starting to reach a point of critical mass.
Yeah, and there has been a lot of momentum for the Harris campaign. If we get this clearer understanding of her policy positions, what will that do for her campaign? Is this a necessary but perhaps fraught step?
Well, it's always a potential fraught step because there's potential to make a mistake, or there's potential for fodder to be taken from the interview. If she misspeaks or contradicts herself, then the other side will extrapolate that and use it against her. So, of course, when you're riding this wave of momentum the way she's had since she took over as the nominee, there was no reason to take that risk before the convention. But now, in America, after Labor Day is really where the final home stretch, where the sprint to the election takes place. Ballots start coming out early in September because we have early voting in some states. So she needed to do this before Labor Day when people are still on vacation in case there is a major misstep and people will forget about it by the time the debate happens on September 10th, if it in fact happens, because Donald Trump seems to be backing away from it.
Yeah. The latest there that he's saying it's still on. If it does go ahead, what are you looking for in that debate?
Oh, that's going to be must-see TV for us, not only in the U.S., but I think around the world, because you're going to see for the first time a woman of color nominee who's a prosecutor against a convicted felon. This has never happened in the United States before. And I think she's finally going to prosecute the case in front of the American people about why she's better fit to be president of the United States and Donald Trump is not.
Trump has been re-indicted on charges relating to his effort to subvert the 2020 presidential election. It is unlikely to go to trial before November's election. Will it have any effect on his campaign?
Well, we've already seen that his felony convictions in the other case have had an impact in polling. He's lost some support. There are voters who are uncomfortable with voting for a convicted felon. And the January 6th case that we're talking about now with Jack Smith, it's pretty significant. It will remind the American people about the fact that Donald Trump tried to subvert a free and fair election and incited an insurrection. That is something that is an affront to those of us who respect our democracy and believe that what he did warrants him never being president of the United States again. So the fact that it will not come to trial before the election, I think, is a travesty. The American people should have seen the facts and seen this case prosecuted in court. But the fact that it's being reintroduced, I think it hurts Donald Trump because they don't want people to be reminded of that terrible day in America.
What are the polls showing at the moment?
Well, right now, Donald Trump is in decline and Kamala Harris is surging. There is a true momentum shift, and that was happening even before the Democratic convention. And since then, traditionally, nominees get a bump out of their convention, and we're seeing that so far. She is actually leading in some of the battleground states and leading overall nationally, or she's tied, which is a significant increase from where Joe Biden was before she got in the race. So all the momentum is with Kamala Harris right now. And Donald Trump seems very discombobulated. He has yet to land a punch on her politically, and he's still struggling to gain his footing.
And if Kamala Harris is looking to broaden her base with this CNN interview as a start, what are the obvious targets there and how she would go about that?
Yeah, so of course, in the US, we have basically 50 mini state elections. We don't have a national election. And this is all going to come down to about 7 battleground states. Before it was only 4. But with Kamala Harris in the race now, it's expanded somewhat to 7 states. And you're looking at Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and North Carolina, possibly. These are in Nevada. She needs to speak to those middle of the road voters who were unsure about her, who are maybe unfamiliar with her, but who are also uncomfortable voting for Donald Trump. She's going to be talking to moderate women in those states. And women are really going to make the difference in a lot of these battleground states because of the assault on women's reproductive rights here in the U.S. and the ballot initiatives on a few of those battleground states trying to codify abortion rights for women. That's an issue that helps her a lot, and it's a troublesome issue for the Republicans.
Tara Setmayer, founder of the Seneca Project, a political action committee dedicated to mobilising women to support Kamala Harris. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.